When we hold the memory of a traumatic event, we talked before about the Challenger explosion. So you hold what's important, you let the other things go. If the traumatic event happens in an in-group, so within your family, or if it's in school, so you have to be in that classroom for a year. If you're in summer camp and you've got to be there for a month and you can't leave, or every summer for a month. If it's an environment where it's not just sort of a one-off, but where you have to be in an ongoing relationship with these people, that changes what's seen as significant. So what happens is when we store that memory, we don't simply store what happened to us as a victim, or if we were a perpetrator, what we did as a perpetrator, or what we observed as an observer, okay, or what we helped as a savior. Right now, you've got the training to pull out each one of those and to work with each one of those individually. I'm talking about something different from that. I'm saying whatever role we were in, let's say the victim, if it was in a childhood setting, then what we store as significant are the relationships of the people around us in that event. So, who was watching? Who did it? Who helped? Who was hurt? Those are stored together as a gestalt. Now, that's really important because in order to integrate that memory and heal and gain fluidity in the world, you have to integrate all of the roles that were present. I'm going to say all four. They don't have to be all. There could be 1, 2, or 3, 4 present. I'm just going to say all four, meaning because there's up to 4. So you've got to integrate all 4 of those roles. Now, what that means is, I'm going to give an example. I was mugged once in high school. Big high school rough in the 70s, all sorts of social movements and race riots and all sorts of things were happening. I was in a giant high school, 5,000 kids. When the main classes crossed, it was like being on an East Coast subway at rush hour. The smaller, actually it's an exaggeration, the smaller kids, like the freshmen, sometimes find it cool because sometimes you can be picked up and carried 6 inches or a foot without your feet touching the ground. It's just smashed together, right? So what happened to me at the intersection of First and Main, which is the most crowded hallway in the school, to this day, I don't know why I was picked. I don't know, I was a little tiny freshman. I don't know if I was victim of the day. I don't know if it's because my mother was a junior, she taught junior level English. I don't know if it was a friend of, I have no clue. This is big school and there's a lot of violence. So I'm walking there and then all of a sudden, in the middle of this crush, I'm thrown to the ground. I have 5, 6, or 7 boys, I can't remember, who are just kicking the crap out of me. I didn't know any of these kids. I'm a little tiny kid. Okay. Well, it's a school setting. I have to go back to that school the next day, and the next day, and the next year, and the next year. This is my home for 4 years, right? So when I stored that memory, then what I stored was not only my memory physically being on the ground and trying to avoid, just like, not the face, not the groin, not the belly, it's just while being kicked. Was I also stored all the other students who watched and did nothing. And I also stored the expressions and actions of these boys who were doing it. Those were stored within me. Now, they dissipated, so there wasn't a savior on the scene. They faded away. There could have been that a teacher came, but that isn't what happened. They just sort of faded into the crowd and it was over and I gathered my books and got up. So when I work with that memory, I can't just work with being the victim or it won't fully integrate and the symptoms won't go away. I'm going to say something about the symptoms in a minute because the symptoms are bad news. Now, this has really big implications for how therapy is normally practiced, so think this through. There's a standard trance that happens in therapy. I'm the therapist. I'll be your caretaker. I'll make you okay. You're the victim. You're the identified patient. If you come to me and give me money and admire how good I am at helping you, I'll be super therapist and I'll help you. You see the limits of that. We're stuck with two roles. The client can go anywhere except victim, and the therapist is stuck in savior. And they're stuck in those two places. We lose all the other combinations. Now, some of us have talked about it's important that the client gains those resources and they gain this sense of being their own caretaker, their own savior. So that's good, and we talk about that. So now we've got this nice agreement where we go in and we help the client, and then as they internalize, they get stronger and stronger, and then we back off and they get more independence from us, and they take the caretaker out with them into the world. This is very good. But it doesn't deal with these classes of in-group traumas. Because one of the things that happens is there's what we can't allow to happen in the room is somebody not caring. That's not allowed to be in the room. And we certainly don't allow perpetrators in the room. Right? So when we're doing the therapy, it's good to start with. We were working with me and that thing that happened to me when I was a freshman in high school. We'd want to work with integrating my victim memory. What were my defensive responses? Putting together the chronology of time, reassociating the memory, right? Okay, well good. That's not going to finish it. We're still going to have symptoms. And it's the symptoms of the observers and the perpetrators. So we've got to integrate those memories. So what that'll look like in the session is, and it's got to be done both ways, is that first, the client will begin to project those parts of the script onto you as the therapist. I'm talking about this and I just feel like, are you paying attention today? Are you here? Because this is a really big deal to me. And now watch, now as client I begin to move into perpetrator. And I just don't know what the hell it is. I mean, I come in and I pay you this money and it's like something gets serious for me and now you're kind of checking out. See? So now they're beginning to play. So what's coming up in the field is the observer and the perpetrator starting to come up, and they're both coming out. Right? So we want to slow them down and work them one at a time. Right? So there's ways to do that. Okay? And it involves you as a therapist being willing to tolerate being perceived strongly by somebody that you're an observer and you don't care and you're not going to step in and help. Can you sit there as a therapist? You've trained in your life to help people and to connect with people. And this person who wants you to connect with them is saying to me, you're not there, you're not paying attention to me. I mean, the whole impulse is to try to convince them otherwise, right? Oh no, I'm here, blah, 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 right? Instead of saying, okay, let's work with this. This is an aspect of this. So stay in relationship with me. Well, just noticing. It just seems like I just don't care at all. Right? And there's ways we actually soup that up so much. I'm not sharing with you all because I don't want you to do it at home. Chemistry set and blow up your garage. And then you work that piece. And then once you work the piece where you as the therapist are holding the role and they're interacting with you in the observer role, and then you work it the other way, where then the client embodies the observer role, which quite often they're not going to be very, very happy about at all. And then you got to do the same thing with the perpetrator role. Otherwise, when triggered in the future, you will tend to either invite into your life observers or perpetrators, or you will tend to play that role out. This is the big juice. This is...
Or you will turn your partner into it.
Yeah, that's what I mean by the other.
Just recreate it, yeah.
That's right. So you find the people, you recruit the people. Yeah, you bring them into your life, or you get some perfectly neutral person and you train them to do it. That's right. Freud said a lot of things, and I know Freud's like the Bible. He says everything and the opposite of everything, so you can quote him for anything, right? However, this is very nice, so I'm going to quote him anyway on this. And he said, it's really striking how much we attempt to train other people to do what we expect of them. right? In other words, it's striking how strong go back to the pumpkin and the basketball. It's striking how powerful our feed-forward loops are. I see you this way, be this way, because I see you this way. And he said, what's even more striking than that is the willingness of people to be trained. Yeah. Because if we don't know what's going on, we aren't interpreting correctly what's going on. We think we're trying to create rapport, or we're kind of saying, is this true or not, or we just believe them, and we're off to the races. And it's a battle of whose trance is stronger. If somebody has a traumatic trance, their trance is probably stronger. Yeah.
I'm still a little confused on how the client would then eventually take on the perpetrator role themselves.
Oh, wow. Great. Okay. So let's, so what that would look like, let's say you were that freshman in high school. Okay. So we'd be working, and we would have probably worked all the other roles first. So this would probably be the last piece that was left. And we'd set up the we'd set it up, eye contact, containment, and so on. And then probably have you say things like, I just want to kick you. I just want to kick you. Just, God, it feels so good. I can feel my shoe going into your side. And just really invite you to go deeper and deeper into it, which will freak a lot of people out, which is why we work on it one step at a time. But that's held in that memory. They saw the look on the people's faces when their feet went into their side. That is stored. And a lot of times we try to make our psyche safe by locking those things out and saying, I'm not going to feel things like that. That is too ugly, it's too mean, there's evil in the world, and I'm not going to let it into my brain. Well, it's already stored there. Mm-hmm. So the trick is, how can we crack the door and let it come out a little bit at a time? And then once they're comfortable with that, you open the door a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until it's flowing and the memory's integrated, and then it's okay. But I give you a little taste of what that looks like at like step 14. Okay, you start with that. You start with that, it's a mess. Not because something terrible would happen, probably because the client would just not get it, they would dissociate, it would just be weird and nothing would happen. Okay?